The boardroom whispers had been growing for weeks. Catherine Collins, the newly appointed CEO of Nexus Technologies, couldn't ignore them any longer. Jack Miller, the night janitor, a quiet single father who kept to himself, had been spotted accessing restricted areas after hours. Security footage showed him lingering at executive computers, entering the R&D wing when he thought no one was watching. With a major product launch approaching and competitors circling, Catherine couldn't risk a potential data breach. Tonight, she would follow him herself. What she discovered would not only change her opinion of Jack Miller, it would transform her entire company. Watch the full story to understand why sometimes the quietest person makes the biggest impact, and why a successful CEO decided to change her entire company because of one janitor. Jack Miller, 42, moved with practiced efficiency through the gleaming hallways of Nexus Technologies. His weathered hands pushed a cleaning cart methodically, eyes downcast but observant. 4 years at Nexus had taught him which executives left coffee rings, which developers worked latest, which security guards could be trusted. His worn blue uniform hung slightly loose on his frame, once athletic, now lean from years of stretching every dollar to provide for Emma, his 8-year-old daughter. The cleaning staff adored Jack. He took the worst shifts without complaint, covered for sick colleagues, and somehow remembered everyone's birthdays with simple, handwritten notes. Yet to management he remained invisible, just another interchangeable service worker, maintaining their pristine corporate environment. Catherine Collins, 35, was everything Jack was not in the corporate hierarchy. Striking with piercing green eyes that missed nothing, she had rocketed through the ranks at Nexus with brilliant market strategies and ruthless efficiency. As a single mother to 10-year-old Nathan, she understood sacrifice, but her Harvard MBA and executive wardrobe created a gulf between her world and Jack's. After her bitter divorce from a cheating husband, Catherine had built walls around herself, trusting spreadsheets more than people. Appointed CEO 6 months ago, she ruled Nexus with intimidating competence and guarded suspicion. Neither realized how completely their worlds were about to collide. Catherine first noticed the pattern during a late-night review of security protocols. The new CFO had mentioned finding his computer moved slightly one morning. When Catherine requested footage from the past month, a pattern emerged. Jack Miller accessing areas beyond his clearance level, using computers after hours, sometimes placing what appeared to be storage devices into ports. "This is the third time this week," she murmured, squinting at the grainy footage of Jack entering the server room at 11:43 p.m., well after his shift supposedly ended. He emerged 40 minutes later, slipping something into his pocket. The next morning, Catherine called in her head of security, Marcus Reynolds. "What do we know about this janitor?" she asked, sliding Jack's employee file across her desk. Marcus shrugged. "Miller, quiet guy, reliable. Been here about 4 years, no complaints." "That's it? A man with access to our entire building at night? And that's all we know?" Catherine's voice took on the edge that made executives wince. The file was thin. Jack Miller, 42. Previous employment, various. No college listed. Single father. Emergency contact, Mrs. Elaine Miller, his mother. Perfect attendance record. Minimum wage plus standard benefits. Nothing that explained why a janitor needed access to high-security areas or executive computers. That afternoon, Catherine noticed Jack polishing the glass walls of the conference room while her executive team debated quarterly projections. His reflection watched the presentation momentarily before moving on. Had he been reading the confidential numbers displayed on the screen? "We have a major product launch in 3 weeks," she reminded Marcus later. "If any of that proprietary technology leaks, want me to terminate him? We could do it quietly." Catherine considered this. Something didn't add up. Jack had been at Nexus for years. Why start industrial espionage now? And if he was stealing data, why be so obvious about it? "Not yet. I want to know what he's doing first, who he's working for." That Friday, Catherine canceled her dinner plans and stayed late, changing into casual clothes kept for gym emergencies. When Jack's shift ended at 10 p.m., she followed him to the parking lot, maintaining distance as his battered Honda Civic pulled out. The car headed away from the affluent neighborhood surrounding Nexus into progressively working-class areas. Catherine kept 3 cars between them, heart racing. Was he meeting contacts? Selling Nexus's intellectual property? After 20 minutes, Jack parked outside a rundown community center. The faded sign read Westside Community Resource Center. Jack retrieved a worn backpack from his trunk and walked inside. Catherine waited 5 minutes before following. Through a window, she could see Jack setting up laptops in what appeared to be a classroom. Children began filing in, mostly teenagers, some younger, from visibly diverse backgrounds. Jack greeted each by name, helping them settle at workstations. Confused, Catherine slipped inside, lingering in the hallway. She could hear Jack's voice, warm and authoritative in a way she'd never heard at Nexus. Remember what we discussed about algorithm efficiency? Today we're putting that into practice. Let's build something that actually helps people. Catherine peered around the doorframe. Jack stood before a whiteboard, diagramming what appeared to be a complex software flowchart. The teenagers watched with rapt attention as his confident hands mapped connections between modules. Hands that hours earlier had been emptying trash bins at Nexus. "Mr. Miller," a girl with bright eyes raised her hand. "Could we use this same approach for the community resource database?" "Excellent question, Lucia. That's exactly the kind of application I had in mind." Catherine watched, dumbfounded, as Jack led the class through what she recognized as advanced systems architecture. College-level material at minimum. These children, many wearing second-hand clothes, typed furiously as Jack moved between stations, offering guidance with patient expertise. After class, she followed Jack to another room where younger children waited. From her hiding spot, Catherine watched as he distributed refurbished laptops to wide-eyed recipients. "These are yours to keep," she heard him explain to a boy no older than 10. "I've installed educational software and basic programming tools. The password is your birthday, just like we practiced." The boy hugged the laptop to his chest like a treasure. When Jack finally emerged from the center 3 hours later, Catherine ducked behind a column. She watched him load empty containers back into his car. The same containers she'd seen him carrying out of Nexus. Not stolen technology, but donated equipment. Her phone vibrated with an urgent email from her assistant. Distracted, Catherine failed to notice Jack approaching until he spoke. "Ms. Collins, is everything all right?" She froze, caught in her surveillance. Jack stood a respectful distance away, confusion evident on his tired face. "I was just dropping off donations," she improvised, gesturing vaguely toward the center. Jack's expression remained neutral, but his eyes, surprisingly sharp and intelligent, reflected disbelief. "The center always appreciates support," he said carefully. "Especially from someone like yourself." "Someone like myself? Someone with influence?" He hesitated. "If you're interested in the program, I'd be happy to show you around properly next time. We teach coding, digital literacy, resume building, basic skills that might help these kids break cycles of poverty. And you're qualified to teach these things because..." The question came out more accusatory than intended. Something shuddered in Jack's expression. "Good night, Ms. Collins." He walked to his car without looking back, leaving Catherine with more questions than when she'd arrived. The next morning, Catherine instructed her assistant to compile everything available on Jack Miller. By afternoon, she had her answer, one that made her sink into her chair in disbelief. Jack Miller wasn't just qualified to teach programming. According to archived articles and patents, he had once been Jonathan Jack Miller, Senior Systems Architect at Empirical Software. More startling, he had been part of the original development team for the core technology that Nexus had later acquired and built their flagship products upon. "This can't be right," Catherine muttered, scanning employment records. Jack had held a prestigious position at Empirical, then abruptly disappeared from the industry 5 years ago. Further digging revealed the reason: a wrongful termination lawsuit that Jack had filed against Empirical's then CEO William Harrington. The suit claimed Jack had been fired after blowing the whistle on unsafe shortcuts in medical software that could have endangered patients. Though Jack had eventually won a modest settlement, Harrington had blacklisted him throughout the industry. Shortly after, Jack's wife had died of cancer, leaving him alone to raise their daughter. Catherine sat back, processing this information against the man who silently cleaned her office each night. The janitor with downcast eyes had once been a rising star in exactly her industry, until principles cost him everything. That night, Catherine returned to the community center, this time walking directly to the administrative office. The director, an older woman named Diane, greeted her with surprise when Catherine introduced herself as Nexus's CEO. Jack never mentioned knowing someone from Nexus, Diane remarked. We're not exactly acquainted, Catherine admitted. I'm curious about your program here. Diane's pride was evident as she explained. We serve predominantly immigrant and low-income families. Many parents work multiple jobs, leaving children unsupervised. Our center provides safe space, meals, and education. She hesitated. Jack's program has been transformative. Before him, we could barely offer basic computer access. Now we have coding classes, digital literacy, even internship preparation. And Jack provides this for free? Diane's expression softened. He volunteers all his time. The equipment comes from donations he somehow finds. Refurbished laptops, monitors, cables. We've seen children who couldn't turn on a computer now building websites for local businesses. Catherine followed Diane to a small classroom where Jack sat with an elderly woman, patiently showing her how to use video calling software. She hasn't seen her grandchildren in Venezuela for 8 years, Diane explained quietly. Jack set up the connection and taught her how to use it. As they toured the facility, Catherine noticed the makeshift nature of everything. Outdated equipment, furniture held together with duct tape, a leaking ceiling with strategically placed buckets. Yet somehow, the space radiated purpose and hope. Our biggest challenge is space and equipment, Diane confided. We have a waiting list of 60 children. Jack does miracles with what he finds, but what if someone wanted to help? Catherine asked. Diane's eyes widened. That would be extraordinary. The next day, Catherine authorized an anonymous corporate donation to the West Side Center. Enough for building repairs, new equipment, and expanded programming space. When Jack arrived that evening to find new computers being installed, Diane simply said they'd received an unexpected blessing. Over the following weeks, Catherine found herself inventing reasons to work late, observing Jack from a distance. Once aware of his background, she noticed the incongruities. How he methodically organized server cables that most janitors would jumble together. How his eyes lingered on code displayed on developer screens. The careful way he handled electronic equipment others might treat as trash. When developers left prototype tablets unattended, Jack didn't steal them. He adjusted their position to prevent overheating. When confidential documents were carelessly left out, he didn't photograph them, he placed them in secure drawers. The man she'd suspected of corporate espionage was actually providing unpaid security oversight. Catherine was still processing these revelations when crisis struck Nexus. 3 days before their major product launch, the development team discovered a critical flaw in their flagship software, one that threatened to delay release by months and potentially cost millions in lost revenue and stock devaluation. The executive floor became a war zone of blame and panic. Catherine ordered an emergency meeting of all senior technical staff. Solutions proposed were either too time-consuming or risked introducing new problems. As the meeting descended into finger-pointing, Catherine noticed Jack quietly cleaning the adjacent conference room, his reflection in the glass showing an expression of concerned concentration. On impulse, Catherine stepped out of the meeting. "Jack, could I speak with you a moment?" He followed her to a quiet corner, maintaining a respectful distance. "You were part of the original empirical team that developed our core framework," she stated without preamble. Jack's expression revealed nothing. "You've been researching me." "Yes." Catherine met his gaze directly. "We have a critical system failure in the integration layer. Given your background, I wonder if you might have insights." For a long moment, Jack said nothing. Then, "May I see the error logs?" Catherine led him to her office, ignoring the startled looks from executives as the janitor followed her. She pulled up the diagnostic reports on her screen. Jack studied them intently, his posture shifting subtly as he leaned forward. Transformation visible as the janitor receded and the architect emerged. His fingers hovered over the keyboard questioningly. When Catherine nodded permission, he began typing with confident precision, navigating complex system architecture with evident familiarity. After 20 minutes of focused work, he straightened. The integration layer isn't the primary problem. It's a memory allocation issue in the underlying framework, something we encountered in the original development. He pointed to specific sections of code. These workarounds are triggering cascading failures when the system scales beyond certain parameters. Can it be fixed before launch? Catherine asked. Jack nodded slowly. With the right approach. I'd need to see the full code base to be certain. Catherine made a decision. Come with me. She led him back to the boardroom, where arguing executives fell silent at their entrance. Without preamble, Catherine announced, "This is Jack Miller. He was senior systems architect on the original framework and has identified our problem. For the next 48 hours, he'll be consulting with our development team." The CTO's incredulous, "The janitor?" hung in the stunned silence. Catherine fixed him with a level stare. "Mr. Miller was implementing advanced systems architecture while you were still learning basic syntax, Thomas. I suggest you listen carefully to what he has to say." 46 hours later, Nexus launched its product on schedule. The critical flaw had been not only fixed but improved upon, with Jack's solution creating unexpected efficiencies that enhanced overall performance. The stock price jumped 12% by closing bell. In the aftermath, Catherine called an all-hands meeting. The entire company, from executives to maintenance staff, gathered in the main atrium. Jack stood uncertainly at the back, still in his janitor's uniform. "Nexus faced potential disaster this week," Catherine began. "Our success today isn't just about avoiding failure. It's about recognizing value where we failed to see it." She gestured for Jack to join her on the platform. After a moment's hesitation, he complied, discomfort evident in his rigid posture. "Many of you know Jack as the man who keeps our facilities running. What you don't know is that Jack Miller was once at the forefront of the technology that made Nexus possible." She proceeded to outline Jack's contributions to the industry and the ethical stand that had cost him his career. "While we've been stepping over him to reach our offices, we've been ignorant of the expertise literally cleaning up after us." Catherine turned to face Jack directly. "On behalf of Nexus, I offer both apology and opportunity. We would be honored to have you rejoin the technical leadership team, effective immediately." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Jack's expression remained carefully neutral, though something flickered in his eyes. "That's very generous, Miss Collins," he replied, voice steady, "but I'm afraid I must decline." Catherine hadn't anticipated refusal. Before she could respond, Jack continued, "5 years ago, I made a choice between professional advancement and ethical responsibility. That choice cost me my career, but preserved something more valuable." His voice gained confidence as he spoke. "In losing that world, I found another. The children and families I work with at Westside Center need advocates and mentors. More than this company needs another systems architect." Catherine recovered quickly. "Then I propose an alternative. Nexus will establish a technology access initiative with the Westside Center as our flagship partner. We'll provide equipment, curriculum development, and internship pathways. Most importantly, we need a director of community technology outreach to lead this initiative." She extended her hand. "The position is yours if you want it." The atrium erupted in applause. Something remarkable happened to Jack's face. A genuine smile transformed his features, erasing years of careful guardedness. "This," he said, taking her hand, "is an offer I'd be honored to accept." The transformation began immediately. Jack continued his evening classes at Westside, now with Nexus's full corporate backing. Catherine visited regularly, initially to monitor the investment, then increasingly because she found herself drawn to the center's energy and purpose. On one such evening, she arrived to find Jack teaching Emma and a group of children, including her own son, Nathan. She hadn't planned this intersection of their personal lives, but watching Nathan engaged in learning, his eyes alight with the same passion she'd once felt for technology before executive pressures dulled it, Catherine felt something rigid within herself begin to soften. Jack approached as class ended, his demeanor more relaxed in this environment than at Nexus. "Nathan has a real aptitude for spatial reasoning," he offered. "He solved a three-dimensional modeling challenge most adults struggle with." "Who hasn't shown much interest in my work before," Catherine admitted, watching her son helping younger children pack up their materials. "Perhaps because corporate software lacks dinosaurs and spaceships," Jack suggested with unexpected humor. Catherine found herself laughing, a genuine sound that surprised them both, Fair point. As weeks passed, the initiative expanded. Nexus employees began volunteering their expertise. Former center students returned as mentors. Jack's quiet leadership style, so different from Catherine's directive approach, proved remarkably effective at building community engagement. What began as professional respect between CEO and janitor turned director evolved into something more complex. They were both single parents wounded by loss, both driven by principles beneath protective shells. In Jack's dedicated care for others, Catherine recognized a strength different from Mystique, but equal to her own ambition. In her determined efficiency, Jack found complementary purpose to his patient nurturing. The breaking point came during budget reviews, when Catherine defended the initiative against board members questioning its ROI. The Technology Access Initiative isn't charity, she stated firmly. It's strategic investment in future talent and community goodwill. Our quarterly engagement metrics show 32% improvement in brand perception. More importantly, we've already identified 17 exceptional students for our internship pipeline. Commendable, the CFO acknowledged. But the resources allocated seemed disproportionate to immediate returns. Jack Miller created our core architecture, then we relegated him to cleaning floors because the industry blacklisted him for ethical conduct, Catherine responded sharply. How many other brilliant minds are we missing because they lack opportunity, not ability? This initiative corrects institutional blindness while building competitive advantage. After securing continued funding, Catherine found Jack waiting outside the boardroom. "You didn't have to fight so hard for us," he said quietly. "Yes, I did." Their eyes held for a moment longer than professionally necessary. That weekend, their children's play date became dinner at Catherine's home, then lingered into evening conversation after the children fell asleep watching movies. Somewhere between discussing curriculum development and sharing stories of single parenthood, personal barriers began dissolving. "Why did you follow me that night?" Jack finally asked. "You could have just fired me for unauthorized computer use." Catherine considered her answer carefully. "Something didn't fit. The careful way you worked. I needed to understand before judging." "A rare quality," Jack observed. "Most people find judgment more convenient than understanding." "I've been on the receiving end of convenient judgments too often to trust them," she admitted. Their conversation continued past midnight, two guarded individuals cautiously recognizing reflection in each other. 6 months after Jack's appointment, the West Side Center hosted a formal opening of its expanded facilities. The Jack Miller Technology Lab plaque had been Catherine's surprise, overriding his protests about recognition. The classroom, once cramped and makeshift, now featured state-of-the-art equipment, comfortable learning spaces, and walls adorned with student projects. More significant were the faces. Children from the community alongside Nexus executives. Neighborhood parents beside software engineers. All united in celebrating something built together. As Catherine prepared to address the gathering, she caught sight of Jack kneeling beside a young boy struggling with a coding problem. The patient attention he showed, the same focus, whether helping a child or solving million-dollar technical problems, crystallized everything that had changed at Nexus under their unusual partnership. "When I became CEO," Catherine began her speech, "I measured success through market share and profit margins. Important metrics, certainly, but incomplete." She gestured around the room. "True innovation happens when we recognize potential in unexpected places, when we value contribution over credentials, when we understand that talent doesn't always arrive in expected packages." Jack stood quietly at the back, uncomfortable with the tension but visibly moved by the transformed space and opportunities it represented. This initiative began because one person refused to abandon principles or community, even when it cost him everything professionally, Catherine continued. Jack Miller reminded us that technology should serve humanity, not the reverse. In doing so, he's helped Nexus rediscover its purpose beyond profit. The center's first graduates, now Nexus interns, presented Jack with a handmade plaque. Unlike the company's corporate recognition, this one read simply, "For the man who saw what we could become before we knew ourselves." Later, as the celebration continued, Catherine found Jack standing alone, watching their children playing programming games with other students. "Having second thoughts about refusing that senior architect position?" she asked, joining him. Jack shook his head. None whatsoever. He nodded toward where Emma was helping Nathan debug his game. Some architectures matter more than software. Catherine found herself reaching for his hand, a gesture that would have been unimaginable months earlier. Nexus was building all the wrong things before you arrived. You were the one brave enough to change direction, he countered. Perhaps we needed each other to see clearly. Her fingers tightened briefly around his. I'm still learning to value what can't be quantified in quarterly reports. Jack's smile reached his eyes, a transformation still new enough to seem remarkable. And I'm learning that sometimes influence can amplify impact rather than corrupt it. As evening fell, families gradually departed until only core staff remained. Catherine watched Jack help maintenance workers, his former colleagues, organize the cleanup, still fundamentally the same humble man despite his restored professional standing. Nathan approached, interrupting her thoughts. Mom, can Emma come for another coding sleepover this weekend? Mr. Miller said it's okay if you agree. Catherine smiled at her son's enthusiasm. I think that could be arranged. As they prepared to leave, Jack secured the new facility with care born of years protecting what mattered with limited resources. At the entrance, he paused before a newly installed wooden sign bearing the center's expanded name, West Side Technology and Community Development Center, built for second chances. Your idea? He asked, recognizing Catherine's influence. Some concepts deserve recognition. Their eyes met, with shared understanding of second chances, professional and personal. Emma and Nathan raced ahead to the parking lot, their friendship uncomplicated by the adult's complex history. Catherine and Jack followed more slowly, their professional partnership evolving into something neither had sought, but both increasingly welcomed. The board-approved regional expansion, Catherine mentioned. 5 new centers within 2 years. We'll need someone overseeing the broader initiative, she glanced at him. Someone who understands both the technology and the human element. Jack considered this. Ambitious. Necessary, Catherine countered. Technology access remains the greatest predictor of economic mobility. What you've built here deserves multiplication. They reached their cars, parked side by side, her luxury sedan and his practical Honda, containing children already planning their weekend projects. I'll consider it, Jack promised, if you'll consider something in return. Which is? Joining us for the wilderness STEM camping trip next month. The children learn environmental monitoring technology. Parents learn to survive without email for 48 hours. Catherine laughed, the unguarded sound still new between them. Terrifying. Growth requires discomfort, Jack reminded her, echoing her own words from a recent strategy meeting. As they prepared to drive their separate ways, for now, Catherine reflected on how completely her understanding had been transformed. 6 months ago, she'd followed a janitor suspecting corporate espionage. Tonight, she was following his lead into community impact she'd never imagined for her company or herself. Catherine, Jack called as she opened her car door. When she turned, his expression held the quiet certainty that had first drawn her attention. Some of the parents are organizing a community dinner next weekend. Nothing formal. You and Nathan would be welcome. The invitation hung between them. Professional collaboration edging toward personal connection. We'd like that, she answered simply. As they drove away in opposite directions, her to the executive neighborhood, him to his modest apartment, Catherine caught a final glimpse of the center in her rearview mirror. The building stood transformed, just like the company, just like their understanding of value and purpose. What began with suspicion had become partnership. What started as corporate initiative was becoming community. And something that had begun as professional respect was becoming... Catherine smiled to herself, comfortable with leaving that particular development unfinished for now. Some architectures needed time to reveal their full design. Behind her, the center's new sign caught the last light of day, built for second chances. For a company, for a community, for 2 people who had forgotten how to trust until cleaning floors and running corporations proved unexpectedly compatible paths to remembering. The story wasn't finished. In many ways, it was just beginning.